Henry Cavill has been on quite the roller coaster ride for the last decade, and it leads one to wonder, is he Superman or is he just super unlucky? He snagged the role of Superman in 2013's Man of Steel, only to find that DC didn't really know what to do with the character. The subsequent movies that featured him, Batman vs Superman and Justice League, were disappointments. Things were looking up with The Witcher, but Cavill left over creative differences, and in favor of Black Adam, perhaps thinking that this could be the return of the Man of Steel. But those dreams were quickly dashed by the end of the current DCEU and the start of whatever DC is doing next with James Gunn. He also missed out on some of the biggest roles of the last 20 years. That said, he's had a remarkable career thus far, and it only looks like it'll continue. Cavill got his start in the early 2000s. His first significant role was the 2002 adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo, which is adapted from Alexander Dumas's masterpiece, The Count of Monte Cristo. He played Albert Mondego, who becomes an unwitting pawn in the grand revenge plot of Edmond Dantes. Interestingly, there was a time in the mid-2000s that he almost became Superman. He was chosen to play the Man of Steel in McGee's Superman Flyby, but after the director dropped out, replacement director Bryan Singer decided to cast Brandon Routh as the lead in the eventual Superman Returns. But that's not the only role that he lost out on. Fans wanted to see Cavill play Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire before the role went to Robert Pattinson. Stephanie Meyer, author of the Twilight series, also wanted him as Edward Cullen, but the role again went to Robert Pattinson. Besides Daniel Craig, he was also in the running to be the new James Bond, but the producers chose Craig because they wanted an older version of Bond. He had turned down another role in order to keep himself open for James Bond, Leonidas in Zack Snyder's 300. There were rumors that he was even up for Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, but Cavill said he never auditioned for the role and was never offered it. Still, he kept busy. He consistently kept appearing in movies and TV roles for half a decade before landing his first notable, and I would say breakthrough role, on The Tudors as Charles Brandon, the first Duke of Suffolk. The series had a good, popular run, and Cavill himself credited it with pushing his career, saying that it made him saleable especially to the American public. While he was working on The Tudors, he appeared in several movies including Stardust, Whatever Works, and Blood Creek. 2011 saw him lead a movie for the first time in Tarsem Singh's Immortals. The movie got mixed reviews, but did well at the box office and has, retrospectively, risen in esteem and is, I think, one of Cavill's best performances thus far. The same year Immortals was released, Cavill was cast as Superman in Man of Steel, which would be released in 2013. The film was polarizing with critics and comic book fans. Some, like Mark Waid, author of Superman Birthright, didn't appreciate the darker, bleaker portrayal of Superman, while Grant Morrison, author of All-Star Superman, said he, quote, kinda liked it and kinda didn't, end quote. Others, like Dan Jurgens, who's had a lengthy run on Superman, liked it. Irrespective of critical reception, though, the movie did well at the box office. After Man of Steel, Cavill co-starred alongside Armie Hammer in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is a fun watch, did okay critically, but probably did not make its money back. This is a recurring theme with Cavill. The movies are usually alright, but they fail to make their money back unless they're a part of an already successful franchise. His most successful original film, still, is Immortals, where he plays Theseus. His next movie was not Man of Steel 2, which would have been the reasonable choice, but Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. DC's thinking was obvious and foolish. They looked at the MCU and decided that they wanted all the success without putting in any of the work. Someone probably figured, hey, this is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman we're talking about. The Trinity. A-list superheroes. They don't need any setup. It turns out that they did, in fact, need setup. Perhaps costing as much as $325 million. The film made just $873 million at the box office. That sounds like a lot until you consider that films need to make around 2.5 times their budget in order to break even. The film barely broke even, and even at $873 million was a financial disappointment and started setting off alarm bells at DC. Critically, it bombed. It had a phenomenal opening with almost $423 million, but it just dropped off from there. Word of mouth turned off a lot of people, and others didn't want to see it again. And if a movie wants to break $1 billion, it needs theatrical rewatches. DC jumped the gun here. That's not Cavill's fault. It's the fault of management at the company. Things could have been a lot different if they were patient and took their time to do a Man of Steel 2, a Batman movie, and a Wonder Woman movie before doing Dawn of Justice. Instead, they relied too much on past glories and squandered all the goodwill Christopher Nolan earned them with the Dark Knight trilogy. Things got even worse with Justice League. made on a budget of $300 million, the movie made $658 million at the box office. It most likely lost money. Reviews were better, but that's not saying much. That said, the Snyder Cut has fared better with reviewers than Joss Whedon's theatrical cut. Irrespective of that, Cavill would end his DC run not with a bang, but with a whimpering cameo at the end of Black Adam. One gets the sense that he probably didn't care much for Justice League. He did even shave his mustache for reshoots, which he had grown for Mission Impossible Fallout, a critical and financial success that was hailed as one of the best movies of 2018. Subsequently, he's appeared in the Enola Holmes movies as Sherlock Holmes. The Netflix movies have been well received, but his most famous Netflix role has been Geralt in The Witcher. He portrayed Geralt for the first 3 seasons before leaving. The show's critical reviews have been up and down, but it has, for the most part, done well with critics, and Cavill, in particular, was a hit with fans. The show has been one of Netflix's most popular, though if that'll remain the case with Cavill's exit over creative differences will remain to be seen. Another reason for leaving the show was under the auspices that he might have a future with DC, who had reportedly put a Man of Steel sequel into development almost a decade after the first one. Too little, too late. Those hopes were quickly dashed after Black Adam's lackluster results. He's got more projects in the works, including the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and a Warhammer show for Amazon Studios. Henry Cavill is an interesting case. The only outwardly successful movies that he's been in have been The Count of Monte Cristo, which didn't rely on him, Immortals, which was his breakthrough film role, though in the end I'm not sure how much he himself contributed to the box office success, the DC movies, which are based on already popular characters, and Mission Impossible Fallout, which is another popular franchise. Movies that he's led and have relied on him as the star, with the obvious DC and Mission Impossible exceptions, have fared poorly critically and commercially. His most successful work usually sees him co-starring with someone else. Still, as an actor, he's only 40 and has plenty of time and room to grow. I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes next.